Today on CityCast Portland, we're talking about Trump nominating Oregon Republican Lori Chavez-DeRemer for United States Secretary of Labor and what the possible repercussions could be for our city, state, and country. We're also digging into our mailbag and hearing from you, our listeners. Joining me on this week's Midweek Roundup is our very own executive producer, John Atariani. It's Wednesday, November 27th. I'm Claudia Meza, and this is what Portland's talking about. Welcome, everyone, to our midweek microdose of news. John, thanks for joining me this morning.
Hey, Claudia. Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday. This is our first midweek together in what feels like months.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, because we got out of the habit with all the elections coverage, and then we had a few days where I was out. So, yeah, this is great.
Do you think you're still going to know how to midweek roundup?
I don't know. You might need to really carry this one, Claudia.
Oh, that's what I thought.
I might just be dead weight.
If you're new to the show, today's the day we look at a local story and or updates to stories that we might have missed last week. And the headline we're going to look into this morning is Trump's cabinet pick for U.S. Secretary of Labor, who is recently unseated U.S. Representative and well-known Oregon Republican Lori Chavez-DeRemer. So after she finishes up her first term representing Oregon's 5th congressional district, which she just lost to Janelle Bynum, not by much, after that, she's going to just head over to the White House. And I do wonder if she's like having a Pretty Woman moment right now, you know, where she's like, big mistake with like all the voters. You know?
Does that make Donald Trump Richard Gere in this scenario?
Yeah, and he's just doing that little thing with the you know what I mean?
Oh my God.
With the bracelet. It's being real cute. Anyhow, John, do you know what the U.S. Labor Secretary even does?
Yeah, I actually had sort of a hazy idea, so I did look it up. U.S. Labor Secretary responsible for enforcing and suggesting laws involving labor unions, the workplace, and issues related to business-employee relationships, which in most presidencies is like a little bit of a snoozy job, but I think as we'll get into it, it actually could be a very spicy job with this incoming administration. But.
Yeah, especially if they're trying to dismantle unions, which is what everyone's fearing. You know what I mean? Like everyone's just like, oh my God, this is it. But here are some positive takes on Chavez-DeRemer winning the nomination for U.S. Labor Secretary. One, she's from here, and I imagine she will at least go to bat for us on federal decisions that might impact our economy. She might not get a hit, but she will have the chance to go to bat. Also, as a Republican, if we're talking within the national spectrum, she's actually considered a moderate. Like, she was one of the few that spoke up against January 6th, which I know is like the bare minimum, but it is slightly reassuring that she was like at least able to acknowledge, yo, that shit was crazy, you know? And compared to almost all of Trump's other picks, she at least has a public service background. You know, she's 56 years old. She served 4 years in Happy Valley City Council. Then she became mayor for 8 years. And then from what I could dig up, she was pretty well liked by her constituents. You know, I mean, technically, Pete Buttigieg was also a mayor and had like less overall experience than her when he became Biden's Secretary of Transportation. You know, she was also a U.S. rep, even if just for one term. But just in comparison of like her background, Julie Su, which is Biden's current labor secretary, had already served as the California labor secretary under Governor Gavin Newsom. She was also the California labor commissioner under Governor Jerry Brown. She also, fun fact, John, not that fun, but like interesting fact, I should say, helped bring down a garment slavery ring in El Monte, which is a suburb of East LA, where Thai workers were being trafficked. And like that's who Chavez-DeRemer is following. Also, fun fact, my mom owned a beauty supply store in El Monte for many years in Tito's Plaza, but she didn't use any Thai slavery, though. It was just me and my brother.
That was my follow-up question. Thank you for clearing that up.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I know it's at the tip of your tongue. You're like, why are you bringing this up? I was like, no reason. None. Anyhow.
Just following the water slide wherever we may go.
Anyhow, I know you looked into Lori Chavez-DeRemer's political record and what her appointment could possibly mean to our area and what might be coming up on a federal level.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting looking at someone like this where when you change the perspective on the role that they're going for, how they can look in a different light. When she was running for re-election in the House, it very much was like, can this Trump-aligned Republican win in Oregon? And as we found out, the answer was no. But like, in addition to having strong local roots, she does have labor roots. Like her father was a Teamster. In her first term in the U.S. House, she like took a stand on some sort of pro-labor positions in contrast to a lot of Republicans. And I think that one of the most interesting responses I've seen from her nomination is just how much some conservative papers are not happy with it. Did you see the New York Post headline, Claudia?
No.
Trump's labor pick is toxic anti-conservative rhino who is too close to unions, critics allege. Not serious.
Not serious.
And, you know, in a more understated way, but the Wall Street Journal also did not have nice things to say about Chavez DeRemer either, which, you know, take that for what you will.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Like I said, normally the Department of Labor, not like a huge thing, but like with the Trump administration that is so interested in like kind of tearing down parts of government, like the labor secretary could really come into play in a lot of these decisions, you know? One of the big headlines that's been coming out is Elon Musk and Vivek Shandas are going to be running this new department called the Department of Government Efficiency, which basically sounds like the Department of firing people and like getting rid of government offices. Well, this could be a head-on collision with public sector unions. And that's going to put Chavez DeRemer in the middle of it. At the same time, you know, Project 2025, this conservative blueprint has all sorts of implications that could have a lot to do with labor. The document talks about curbing enforcement of workplace safety regulations. Also, this question about whether the Department of Education is going to be canceled out. If that were to happen, it's not unlikely that a lot of those programs would go into the Department of Labor, which means that Chavez DeRemer would be in the crosshairs of figuring out a lot of this stuff and having to like balance the duties of her job, making sure that like fair regulations and things are in place with an administration that is very hostile to those things.
So OSHA is under the Department of Labor then, right?
Sure.
I remember last time around with Trump, there were a lot of push to deregulate things that made people safer. So I'm curious. Okay, here's two stray thoughts here. One, I noticed that a lot of the comments when local media announced, hey, you know, Chavez DeRemer just was nominated for this pretty big cabinet position. A lot of comments were like, good. She's really pro, you know, union. So I was like, oh, is she? That's pretty cool. I find that interesting knowing that, you know, Trump's cabinet is poised to do Project 2025 and all these things. Why they would choose a heel or like why they would choose a safeguard almost.
Yeah. I mean, and I think it does just sort of speak to the chaos of what this cabinet is shaping up to be. You know, there's sort of like old school establishment conservatives like Marco Rubio. And then there's sort of more extreme America First type people. I mean, before he was kicked out of the running, Matt Gaetz was a good example of that.
I mean, cartoon villains.
You know, so the idea of like, yeah, there is a lot of like internal ideological incoherency in this administration. And I think that sort of is in line with just the way that Trump governs in general. One thing I wanted to point out, though, and something that I'm going to be watching, like we talk about her as being really strong for labor, but there are different types of labor unions, right? So she's been really good and like close with trade unions. She's been close with like education unions, but like public sector unions, you know, she hasn't had that same sort of relationship. And even in the last election, a lot of the public sector unions did support her competitor, Janelle Bynum.
Like SEIU and stuff?
Yeah. So like not all unions are the same. And just because she has proven herself as an advocate for certain types of unions, we don't know that that's going to apply to all labor across the country.
I'm still just waiting for the other shoe to drop.
I mean,
you know, I'm always like, with a conspiracy, with the conspiracy. And I could think of as like, was this like an exchange in, you know, his Republican base that were just like, you need at least one sane person?
So here's my like sort of hypothesis, right? In the first term in office, Trump was very anti-labor, right? But he's made such a play of like being the advocate for the working class and
So funny.
being
Yeah,
like,
totally.
sort of pro-worker, blue collar. So like it's conceivable that this is just part of his bond with like blue collar Americans.
Did you ever see Moneyball?
Oh, forever ago. The baseball movie, right?
Yeah.
I saw it on an airplane, which means that I don't remember anything.
The concept of Moneyball is that the guy who managed the Oakland A's many, many years ago didn't have the money to put together a winning team. So instead, it was like a math game where he just was like, well, if you put the stats together for this team, they create a winning combination. And I'm just like, wouldn't it be hilarious if Trump accidentally moneyballed into this like powerhouse cabinet?
That would be
just
funny.
Like individually.
I suspect.
And it all seems like a nightmare, but together, they saved America.
That would be the lucky bet of the millennium.
I would love this. Fingers crossed.
Claudia's political projection is like, what if all of these bad things turn into a good thing? I mean, that'd be cool.
All right, well, let's take a quick break here. And when we come back, we're digging into our listener mailbag. You want to lead us in?
Yeah. So we actually got a voicemail this morning from listener Dylan, and I'm just going to go ahead and play a clip of it.
Cool.
Hello, this is Dylan from Foster Powell. I'm listening to the newest episode with the representative from China, and I'm just reminded again that, Claudia, you are an amazing interviewer. I really appreciate that. I appreciate your, interviewing style. You ask the questions that I'm thinking and I really want to be asked. For instance, the China representative today shot out a statistic about assault, right? And I was just like, do the math. That's 90 incidences per year. And I moved on. And then, Claudia, you followed up and you said, that's 90, right? Because that's a lot. Anyway, thank you for doing that. Thank you for having on interesting guests and really asking them good quality questions and following up and, getting to the bottom of what you're actually asking instead of just letting them continue on. You rock, and thank you. Bye.
Claudia, good job.
Oh, that's so sweet.
It's really sweet.
I do want to bring John in on this one, though, because a lot of people don't know this, but when I'm doing an interview, either John or Julia is in my ear, and they're like real-time fact-checking or doing the math for me, quite literally. In this instance, John was like, that's 90 incidences, And so know that the reason I was able to so quickly jump into that is because of John.
Yeah, and what you don't know, Claudia, is I did the math and I initially did it wrong. And I looked at it and I was like, wait a minute, that's not right. So I did it a second time and I was like, okay.
And it's so funny. Back to the Moneyball, I feel like our back and forth is a lot like a pitcher and like a catcher.
Sure.
Because sometimes you'll see me, you'll throw something and I'll shake my head until I get a better call. No, not going with the curve.
Fair enough.
Well, thank you so much. That was such a sweet voicemail. It was wonderful to hear first thing in the morning, I'll tell you what.
Yeah, thank you, Dylan. Also, thank you to Andrew Wilson and TriMet for coming on the show and sort of talking through some of these things. I thought it was really wonderful that they made the time for us to come and, talk through these issues that are on a lot of people's minds. If you didn't hear it, yesterday's conversation, it's a banger. You tell we're almost to a vacation, Claudia.
He's so proud of himself for that one. All right. I have another note. So here we go. This is from Mary Pat. Hello, CityCast team. Longtime listener, first-time emailer. Generally, I appreciate your podcast, which is a strong open already. On the whole, your reporting is entertaining, thoughtful, and delightful. I do have a couple issues, though. Although I currently reside in Southern California, I'm a native Nebraskan. On June 23, 2023, and then she gives us the episode title, producer John Notarianni referred to the band 311 as a Southern California thing. While the band's sound might evoke a distinctly SoCal quote-unquote vibe, the members hail from Omaha, Nebraska, and formed the band there on the banks of the Missouri River. Second, and perhaps more egregiously, during last week's Friday News Roundup, host Claudia Meza referred to Runzas as Hot Pockets. While John's explanation was not entirely accurate, these are yeasted dough bread pockets, not pastry-wrapped hand pies, John. Claudia likening our regional delicacy to a cheap freezer food was not only dismissive, but also offensive. I will continue listening because Julia's still cool, and I really like the newsletter, really all in caps, by the way. But I'm probably not going to invite you all to my 402 party on April 2nd. Were we supposed to fly down there?
It's in the upcoming planning calendar.
As a recent tourism motto stated, Nebraska is not for everyone. I guess it's clearly not for you.
Important context, maybe. Mary Pat is my partner. And has been sitting on this 311 grudge with me for like over a year.
And I think she would have kept it close to her chest had I not crapped all over Runza's.
Yeah.
And then she was like, that is one Nebraska. Dis too many.
Mary Pat, we hear you. We see you. It's Claudia's fault.
Always. John, do you want to read the next one?
Yeah, let's go on. So this was in response to our recent episode about our guide to Kenton with Dave Blanchard. And we talked a lot about the Portland International Raceway and how noisy it is. Well, Tracy wrote in and said, I feel compelled to mention that the best part of PIR, the Portland International Raceway, is the Monday and Tuesday night very quiet bicycle racing presented by the Oregon Bicycle Racing Association. In fact, your listeners might want to know about all the OBRA races happening around the city, which are fun to watch. I have no affiliation with OBRA except as a former member. So there you go, Claudia. So you won't be the only person riding their bike to the PIR, apparently.
I'm going to forward this to Dave. I think he would actually want to know this.
Yeah.
Another thing, just quickly, I got a note from friend of the pod, Babs. And she actually confirmed that Tina Kotek, then Representative Tina Kotek, now governor, did have an office at the top of that old firehouse that I thought she lived in.
Oh,
She's like, I visited her there often. So, maybe you just knew about that?
Yeah.
Because I'm like, why would I think that Tina Kotek lived in the fire department? None of this makes sense. Just listen to the show. It aired, on Monday? It aired this Monday.
Yeah.
All right. Well, here's the next one. This is in response to a Friday roundup where I asked our guests, how should Multnomah County make money? Because, we're coming to a deficit in the budget. And my big idea was we would make merch, T-shirts and koozies and
mugs, tote bags.
Of course. But I couldn't come up with a good Multnomah County slogan. And so Rose here has proposed a few. Here we go. She wrote, "Hi team, here's my corniest slogans for today. Just say no to Multnomah County property tax increases.
Okay.
I got my diploma at Franklin in Multnomah. I guess if you went to Franklin, you would want that in a mug or something. Mm-hmm. This might be my favorite. Multnomah, Noma, there are no more cows in Multnomah County. What? Okay, need some green? Come on over. We've got a store for every stoner here in Multnomah. If you like green or caffeine, you'll love living here in Multnomah. This is the last one that I'll say, and it's the one that makes me feel like I might be not on the same whatever Rose is on. But Multnomah Gnomes versus Clackamas Clackens, Friday night, 8 p.m. What? What?
Rose, thank you for entertaining us. Making us laugh when we opened our inbox.
I did have one, though. Mo money, mo Multnomah.
Mo money, mo Multnomah. Now we're just writing tongue twisters.
Well, you guys, thank you for writing in. Obviously, we really get a kick out of it. On the sign-off, Rose wrote, well, that was fun. I hope you aren't too bored. And I just want you to know that usually no.
That is what Claudia and I say to each other after every taping.
Well, John, I know that we're going to be off Thursday and Friday of this week for the holiday, but you wanted to give us a little pitch on something.
Yeah. Off Thursday, Friday, and then next week we are kicking off our inaugural Portland Gives Week, which is something cool that we're doing. We partnered with a bunch of nonprofits, offering them a little bit of promotional time on the show. So each day next week, we will be sponsored by a different nonprofit, and we'll be talking a little bit about what they do. So keep an eye out for that.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me, and I'll see you in 2 minutes.
Yeah. See you in a minute. Thanks, Claudia.
That's all for today here on CityCast Portland. Thank you so much for listening. Our executive producer is John Atariani. Our producers this week were Giulio Fiaioni and Francisco Kilgore. Our Hey Portland newsletter editor is Rachel Monahan, and our host is me, Claudia Meza. Original music by Jenny Conley and Stephen Drizos. Additional music by Epidemic Sound and All the Kimonos. We'll be off Thursday and Friday for the holiday, but we'll be back Monday morning with more from around the city. Until then, see you at Slim's.